Scott Holiday here, and welcome back to Plus 2 Wrestling. Before we get on to today's video, I have fear. There's a fear deep in my heart, and I need to share it with you because it really circles back to the Mercedes Moné problem. You see, I'm looking at Mercedes Moné in the Owen Hart tournament, and she is set to face Athena on Dynamite in the semifinals. And I want to say right now, I'm recording this on Tuesday. I don't know what happens in that match. And I don't think it matters because I think no matter what happens in that match, my fear may come true. Because if you don't know, the winner of the Owen Hart tournament will be crowned at Double or Nothing and then go on to face the AEW's Women's Champion at All In. We presume will be Toni Storm. She may lose it at Double or Nothing, something may happen, but let's just say for now, it's probably going to be Toni Storm. Now, I think it's obvious what should happen here, because Mercedes Moné and Athena have been at odds already. You know, there's been the Billy Stark storyline with the student and the teacher and Athena and Moné have just been butting heads. It's pretty obvious to me that Athena should beat Moné here and go on to the finals. In the finals, I think she should face Jamie Hayter. I love Statlander, but I think we need to rebuild Jamie Hayter a little bit. I think a big win for her will really reunite and reignite her fan base and her fire in AEW. And then in the finals, Jamie Hayter should beat Athena, maybe due to interference. And that would set up two big matches at All In. It'll set up Athena versus Moné for the TBS title and maybe the ROH Women's Championship, and Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm for the AEW Women's Championship. And as much as I like Jamie Hayter, that doesn't feel like a big enough match for All In. It doesn't feel big enough for AEW's version of Wrestlemania. This is where my fear comes in. I think whoever is going to win out of Moné and Athena, doesn't really matter, will win the whole tournament. Let's say, for the sake of argument, because it makes my fear worse, it's Moné. Moné remains undefeated, goes on to Double or Nothing, and wins the Owen Hart tournament. And yet another title gets added to the Moné collection. So now it is the TBS champion, Mercedes Moné, versus the AEW Women's Champion, Toni Storm. But I think that Moné getting past Athena will involve some sort of shenanigans. Maybe she wins by, let's say, count out. Athena would then have an argument that Moné never beat her, and that she should be the one in this match. And then I think they're going to add her to the match. And at All In, we're going to see Toni Storm defend the AEW Women's Champion against Moné defending the TBS Championship and Athena defending the ROH Women's Championship. They're going to go all in. And this will end with Moné picking up the victory, having all the titles, and nowhere to go. That's my fear. It seems so easy to just do Jamie Hayter versus Toni Storm and Moné versus Athena and have two big matches. But I feel like Tony Khan's the one that's going to want a really, really big match. And it's going to be a three-way. Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know, because for right now, I have fear. And now, let's jump on my soapbox. Today on my soapbox, I'm currently getting very excited for WrestleMania 41, as is the rest of the WWE, as on their YouTube channel, they are currently counting down the top 50 matches of all time from WrestleMania history. And as I sit here today, they have not revealed what number one is, but I think we all have a pretty good guess what number 1 is. It's probably going to be WrestleMania 25, The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania. Easily one of the greatest matches of all time. You know, Shawn Michaels is one of my absolute favorite wrestlers of all time. I am a big fan of Mr. WrestleMania himself, but as I continue to analyze professional wrestling, a question started to burn in the back of my mind. Why is Shawn Michaels Mr. WrestleMania? Did he really earn that moniker? I mean, I love Shawn Michaels. He's had a lot of great matches, a lot of great success at WrestleMania, but so has a lot of other people. So is he really Mr. WrestleMania? I say we solve that right here today. This is Who is the Real Mr. WrestleMania? So with a big loaded question like who is the real Mr. WrestleMania, we're going to have to break down some criteria. So let's look at the different type of criteria that you could arguably say make someone Mr. WrestleMania and see if Shawn Michaels is at the top of that list or if someone else should have that moniker. Let's go. Appearances. So a great way to argue that you are Mr. WrestleMania is to say it's not WrestleMania without me. Because I've been on WrestleMania more than any other person. Shawn Michaels has had 17 WrestleMania matches. That makes him the 5th most wrestler in WrestleMania history. He's actually tied with The Big Show, who I don't think anyone is saying is Mr. WrestleMania. Above him, you have Kane, who is also tied with Randy Orton with 19 matches at WrestleMania. Orton's probably going to flip over to 20 after this year's WrestleMania. That still puts him behind Triple H with 22 matches. And of course, number 1 is The Undertaker with 26 WrestleMania matches. So does that mean that The Undertaker is Mr. WrestleMania? I think you could make that argument, but of course, you don't have to have a match to be on WrestleMania. So maybe it's not who's had the most matches at WrestleMania. Maybe it's who has had the most appearances at WrestleMania. Well, Shawn has had 4 additional appearances at WrestleMania. He was the special guest referee in the End of an Era match. He attacked Sting during Triple H's match with Sting. He helped Mick Foley and Stone Cold dispatch the League of Nations. And also he did commentary on Triple H versus Batista's street fight. So that gets him up to 20. Which is still less than The Undertaker, who actually gets bumped up to 27 now because he helped Cody Rhodes win the title at Night 2 of WrestleMania 40. To be honest though, all of that is irrelevant because by this criteria, the person with the most appearances with 32 is Mr. WrestleMania, Howard Finkel. WrestleMania record. So maybe we don't look at just appearances. Maybe it's how well you do at WrestleMania that makes you Mr. WrestleMania. How is Shawn Michaels' record at WrestleMania? It's actually not great. Shawn Michaels is 6-11 at WrestleMania. Sure, he's got big wins over people like Bret Hart, Ric Flair, and El Matador, but he has way more losses against people like The Dead Man, The Undertaker, Stone Cold, Steve Austin, Big Daddy Cool Diesel. I guess Shawn Michaels is a flying type and he's weak against ice. So if you're a cold type wrestler, you're going to beat Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania. He also lost to a lot smaller names. He has losses against people like Akeem, the African Dream, and Tatanka twice. Shawn Michaels' win rate at WrestleMania is only 35.2%. So who is the best? Well, it should be no surprise that we have to talk about The Undertaker, who has the most wins at WrestleMania with 25. He is 25-2 at WrestleMania, giving him a win percentage of 92.6, including 2 victories over Mr. WrestleMania himself, Shawn Michaels. So maybe The Undertaker should really be Mr. WrestleMania. But, of course, we can also talk about that 100%. Who is undefeated at WrestleMania? Maybe Mr. WrestleMania is Mr. T, or AJ Lee, or Michael Cole, but that's silly. The current longest WrestleMania streak is a tie between RVD and Bianca Belair, who are 4-0. So if Bianca can win at WrestleMania 41, she could arguably be Mr. WrestleMania. WrestleMania main events. It is one thing to appear at WrestleMania. It is another to headline WrestleMania. So maybe we're looking too broad, because we're counting matches that Shawn Michaels had at the beginning of his career when we look at his win record and his appearances. Maybe we should just focus on the main event. Well, Shawn Michaels has been in 5 WrestleMania main events. There's the Iron Man match with Bret Hart. There is the special guest referee Mike Tyson match against Stone Cold Steve Austin. There's the triple threat match with Chris Benoit and Triple H. There is the match against John Cena, and of course, his final match with The Undertaker. That's actually more than The Undertaker. The Undertaker only has 4 WrestleMania main events, so maybe this is actually a point to Shawn Michaels. But if we're talking about most WrestleMania main events, well then look no further than Roman Reigns, who at WrestleMania 41 will be walking into his 11th WrestleMania main event. He has appeared in 26.8% of main events. An absolutely staggering statistic. Granted, he only won 6 of them. So he has a 60% win rate right now, before WrestleMania 41, which is better than Shawn Michaels with 20%. But who is the winning most? Who has won the most main events? Well, that goes to Hulk Hogan, who has won 7 out of his 9 WrestleMania main events. So he has a 77.8% win rate in main events of WrestleMania. Though, keep in mind that Rock versus Hogan was not a main event. It should have been the main event, but the actual main event of that WrestleMania was Triple H and Jericho, which I think we all agree was a much better match. Draw power. You know, I think of something that Al Snow said. He said that the greatest match in WrestleMania history is The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, because it drew the most money. Because at the end of the day, the wrestling business is a business. And if it is the biggest show on the WWE calendar, maybe we should look at who brought the most butts into seats. So I did some research, and it's really difficult to find exactly how many people were at a WrestleMania because WWE likes to make up insane numbers. So I looked through a bunch of sources, and this seemed like the most consistent answer. The most attended WrestleMania, with 101,763 people, goes to WrestleMania 32, which would mean that the biggest draw in the history of WrestleMania was Roman Reigns versus Triple H, which I have trouble justifying. But that's not how most people watch WrestleMania. Most people do not go to WrestleMania. They watch WrestleMania from their couch, on pay-per-view, or on streaming. So, what is the most viewed WrestleMania? Well, that goes to last year's WrestleMania 40 with 660 million viewers. The main events of that are, of course, The Rock and Roman Reigns versus Cody and Seth. And then on night 2, Roman Reigns defended against Cody Rhodes. This seems to give more reason to think that Mr. WrestleMania is actually Roman Reigns. Sure, now we can throw The Rock and Seth and Cody into the conversation, but Roman is really starting to build up his case for why he's Mr. WrestleMania. Of course, one match does not make a WrestleMania. So maybe we should look at the whole card. Best match. So maybe we don't look at quantity, we look at quality. What is the best match to ever take place at WrestleMania? So I went to Cage Match and looked at the rankings for every single match. Now, you're not allowed to vote on the rankings of a match if it's under 3 minutes. So unfortunately, that means that Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus, The Rock versus Eric Rowan, and Butterbean versus Bart Gunn were disqualified. So that might affect the numbers a little bit here. I also looked up what Dave Meltzer said, and the best rated match in the history of WrestleMania is Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in their submission match. So it does make sense that that is going into the Hall of Fame if you had to pick a WrestleMania match, because that is voted the best. It currently sits at a score of a 9.64, beating The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25 by 0.02 points. Now, of course, we just said that one match does not make a WrestleMania, so who has the most? Well, Bret and Austin each have 3 matches of the night at WrestleMania. They also share those matches with Shawn Michaels on different occasions. So who has the most? Who has the most best matches at WrestleMania? Well, it's Shawn Michaels with 9. Sort of. You see, if I go strictly by what is voted on by CageMatch.com, Shawn Michaels has 9 matches of the night. But there are 2 occasions where Dave Meltzer actually disagrees, where Dave actually gives more stars to something else rather than what Cage Match says. At WrestleMania 9, Cage Match says that the match of the night is the Steiner Brothers versus the Head Shrinkers. But Dave Meltzer gave it to Shawn Michaels' count-out loss to Tatanka. WrestleMania 9 is bad. There's also the same issue the next year with WrestleMania 10, where Dave gave the match of the night to Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in their Intercontinental title ladder match. However, the votes on Cage Match give it to Bret Hart versus Owen Hart. Also, it should be noted that if you look at WrestleMania 23, the match of the night is The Undertaker versus Batista with a score of 8.45. At that show, Shawn Michaels met John Cena and got a score of 8.44. So as of recording, the Undertaker-Batista match is better than the Shawn Michaels-John Cena match by 0.01. So just a few changes and a few different votes, and you could see Shawn Michaels capture another match of the night. Also, I think we need to talk about WrestleMania 28. The match of the night of WrestleMania 28 is The Undertaker versus Triple H in their end of an era Hell in the Cell match, refereed by Shawn Michaels. Does that count as Shawn participating in a match of the night? I would say it does. Shawn added a lot to that match. So that means that Shawn Michaels has between 9 and 13 matches of the night at WrestleMania, which crushes The Undertaker in second place with 7. So maybe Shawn Michaels does earn the title of Mr. WrestleMania. The title of Mr. WrestleMania. The title of Mr. WrestleMania. So this is professional wrestling, and it's all about, wins and losses and earning championships. So maybe we should treat the title of Mr. WrestleMania as just that, a title, a championship that can be won and lost. Mr. WrestleMania, Shawn Michaels, gets retired by The Undertaker, so maybe he becomes the new Mr. WrestleMania until he gets retired at WrestleMania by Roman Reigns, and now he's the current Mr. WrestleMania. Though I kind of hate that. I mean, you don't really lose titles when you retire. And it's not like either of those guys actually retired. They have both wrestled again. Undertaker would wrestle 2 more times at WrestleMania, so that's not a fair way to do it. So let's do a little bit of research. When was the first time Shawn Michaels called himself Mr. WrestleMania? Well, that was in the lead up to his match at WrestleMania 21 with Kurt Angle. A match that Shawn Michaels lost. So let's say this is a championship that is defended at WrestleMania. Kurt Angle is just a sexy Kurt and is your new Mr. WrestleMania. He would then go on to lose it to Rey Mysterio in a triple threat match at WrestleMania 22. And Rey Mysterio would go on to be one of the best reigning Mr. WrestleManias, as he successfully defends the title against the likes of JBL and CM Punk until he loses it at WrestleMania 27 to a person whose name has yet to come up in this video, surprisingly, Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes then would lose it to The Big Show, along with his Intercontinental title at WrestleMania 28. And then this is where things get confusing. At WrestleMania 29, The Big Show loses a 6-man tag along with Sheamus and Randy Orton to The Shield. That makes The Shield the new Mr.'s WrestleManias. Which actually makes sense because they would defend that the next year at WrestleMania 30 against Kane and the New Age Outlaws. So at WrestleMania 31 is where things get confusing. I would argue that we then get a definitive Mr. WrestleMania when Seth pins Roman Reigns. A Mr. WrestleMania pinning a Mr. WrestleMania in the main event in one of the biggest moments in WrestleMania history. You could argue that Seth lost early in the night to Randy Orton, but I don't think that should make Randy Orton Mr. WrestleMania. You could also make the argument that the person who scored the pinfall at WrestleMania 29 was Dean Ambrose. So that means Dean Ambrose is the real Mr. WrestleMania, and he loses a ladder match for the Intercontinental title against Daniel Bryan. So maybe you could consider Daniel Bryan being Mr. WrestleMania, as the Intercontinental title seems to get tied up to this Mr. WrestleMania claim quite a bit. I don't like that. We'll put that aside, but I don't think it should be Daniel Bryan, and I'll explain as we go forward with this, because Seth and Daniel Bryan both missed the next WrestleMania. But then at WrestleMania 33, Seth successfully defends the title for the first time against Triple H. He would then continue to defend the title of Mr. WrestleMania in a triple threat match against The Miz and Finn Balor, and defeating Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 35. Now, for the Bryan believers, this would also be where Bryan loses the title of Mr. WrestleMania to Kofi Kingston. I don't like that. I'll explain why, but just keep that to the side. Because next is WrestleMania 36. This is where we will get a brand new Mr. WrestleMania when Kevin Owens jumps off the WrestleMania sign and defeats Seth Rollins. It's also the same WrestleMania where we have that weird tag team ladder match where only one competitor from each team is in it. And that would end up meaning that the New Day loses to John Morrison, who's now the new Mr. WrestleMania, and that would make him the current Mr. WrestleMania, and that doesn't make sense to me. So that's why we're ignoring that. We're ignoring that. We're focusing on Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is your Mr. WrestleMania until he loses it at WrestleMania 38 to Stone Cold Steve Austin, who is still Mr. WrestleMania. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it being Stone Cold Steve Austin. If there wasn't a match that was about who made WrestleMania. There was a match that was about who was responsible for creating WrestleMania, and thus who is the real Mr. WrestleMania. And that was a match between Vince McMahon and Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 19. A match that Hulk Hogan wins. So, technically the stakes of that match would imply that Mr. WrestleMania is Hulk Hogan. So, who is the real Mr. WrestleMania? Is it Shawn Michaels for coining the phrase and also having consistently the best matches at WrestleMania? Is it The Undertaker for his streak and his most appearances at WrestleMania? Is it Stone Cold Steve Austin for winning the title of Mr. WrestleMania? Is it Hulk Hogan? No, it's not. I'm going to tell you who I believe is definitively Mr. WrestleMania in a moment. Because first, we need to plug in. Next Friday, April 25th at 7 p.m., Labor of Love presents Tell Me a Story at Northern Liberties Recreation Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There you will see the Labor of Love Championship, the citywide championship, on the line as the winner of the Wrestle Cup, Weber Hatfield, challenges the world-famous Cheeseburger. Plus, in a match I can't wait to see, it's tag team action as Philadelphia's own The Rep battle Crummels and Defarge. Plus, see in singles action, the Celtic Tiger Shay Morgan take on Chris Bishop. It's going to be a fantastic time, so be sure to check out Labor of Love's Tell Me a Story. You can get your tickets in the links down below. Sunday, April 27th at 4 p.m., SPO Wrestling presents the 25th anniversary of the Backseat Boys. Be sure to join us at Harrah's Casino in Chester's, PA, where you will see for the first time ever Drew Gulak battle Simon Gotch. Plus, for the SPO Gold Championship, Rick effin' Blade challenges the Feral Face, plus a battle royal to decide the new Silver Skywalker champion. It's going to be a fantastic time, so be sure to join us at Harrah's Casino on April 27th. You can get your tickets now at spowrestling.com. Saturday, May 3rd, Combat Zone Wrestling presents Crimson Tide, a free show on the boardwalk of Atlantic City starting at 1 p.m. That's just down the road from AEW, who's going to be at Boardwalk Hall. So join us for a bit of an AEW pre-show at CZW Crimson Tide on the Atlantic City Boardwalk May 3rd at 1 p.m. So if you're new to the channel, this is kind of my format, is I give you a bunch of information and then I throw it all away with a big twist and give you who I really believe is the definitive answer. And this video is no different, because you see, in professional wrestling, you can see how it has evolved over the years. In the early days of professional wrestling, in the WrestleMania 1 days, kicking out of a finisher was not unheard of. But it was very, very rare. It was saved for very special occasions. Except for that one time at WrestleMania 7 where the Ultimate Warrior kicked out of 5 Macho Man elbow drops. You remember that? That was dumb. Can't believe that happened. But Still, kicking out of finishers was something that was very rare, but happened on occasion. That brings me to WrestleMania 17, one of the best WrestleManias of all time, where in the main event, we saw The Rock battle Stone Cold Steve Austin. Two baby faces facing off in the main event to definitively decide who is the best. And in that match, we saw multiple finisher kickouts. And there was like the rare moments in the past where someone would kick out of a finisher, but it was rare to see both men hit their finishers and have kickouts occur. Have them steal each other's finishers, having them, in a way, kind of spam their finishers in a desperate way to try to snatch victory. This was a very special match, and it was deemed a great match, but something that should be done sparingly. You can't have all these finisher kickouts happening. No, that's something for a special occasion. That's just when you're wrestling WrestleMania style. That match was the crowning of a new term inside the business as wrestling WrestleMania style, where there are back and forth kickouts of each other's finishers. Now, if you look at today's wrestling, finisher kickouts and multiple finisher kickouts and both men trading finishers, it's not rare. It happens pretty often on an episode of Dynamite. But there's reason to really call this match the turning point. So does that mean that Stone Cold or The Rock are Mr. WrestleManias? No, I don't think that they are Mr. WrestleMania. But if you call that style of match WrestleMania style, I ask you this. Which wrestler is known for wrestling that style? Who is known for having multiple finisher kickouts and having that back and forth where both men are putting it all on the line in every match? There's only one guy that comes to mind, and that's Mr. WrestleMania, John Cena. I want you to think back to things like the US Title Open Challenge, where he would have matches with lower card people. He'd have matches with people who at the time were a couple rungs down, like your Zack Ryders and your Stardusts. It was very common in those matches, despite the fact that they weren't really seen as John Cena level, for them to kick out of the attitude adjustment, for them to hit their finisher on John Cena and have them kick out. Heck, Zack Ryder hits a 450 splash in his match with John Cena. He's pulling out all the stops. They are wrestling that WrestleMania style. John Cena truly embodies the style of a WrestleMania match. So for that reason, I'm going to say officially that Mr. WrestleMania is John Cena. Or there's one other person that could be Mr. WrestleMania, because technically at WrestleMania 25, we crowned Santina Marella as Miss WrestleMania. So technically, if anyone were to marry Santina, they could take the last name of WrestleMania. So I guess Mr. WrestleMania could also be Anna Babji. I probably said her last name wrong. So that's what we're doing today. Thank you so much for joining me for this discussion of who is Mr. WrestleMania. Did I get it wrong? Let me know in the comments down below who you think is Mr. WrestleMania. I hope you're very excited for WrestleMania. I personally am. If you follow me on Blue Sky, I'll put that on screen somewhere right now. You can see my ranking of every match that I've watched WrestleMania week. It's a long list that is constantly being uploaded, so be sure you check that out on Blue Sky. You can also check out these other WrestleMania related videos that are coming on screen right now. And while you're here, please subscribe to the channel so you'll get a notification when I upload one of these videos. And I hope you have a great day.